Every year, billions of dollars vanish. Lives are ruined, families shattered, and it all starts with one text. Hey, are you picking me up at the airport? Welcome to Stolen, hosted by former prosecutor Erin West, a relentless voice exposing the brutal truth behind transnational organized crime and one of the most dangerous and underreported crimes in the world, pig butchering scams. These are not random frauds. They're global, organized, and devastating. Victims aren't just losing money, they're losing hope. This is the podcast where the silence breaks. Stolen. And now your host, Erin West.
Hello and welcome to the Stolen Podcast. I'm Erin West, and I created this podcast for people like my Aunt Terry, who need to know what's happening out there and who need to understand the gravity of the scams that are hitting us, smacking us straight in the face. And I'm fired up this morning. I just got off a call with a victim, and the way that victim was taken advantage of personally hurts my heart. This is way more than people getting money stolen from them. This is people's lives being messed with. And when I think of someone whose life was messed with, I think of my friend Cecilia. You may know her from the Tinder Swindler, and she is that fabulous woman that was in that Netflix series, but she is way more than what you saw on screen in that limited series. You saw a window into Cecilia, but you have no idea the fighter that she is and the example she is to all victims of crime about what can be done. So it's my pleasure it's my pleasure to have her on the podcast today. I'm delighted. She's live from Europe, I believe. So Cecilia, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Erin. I'm like, as I always say when I meet you, I'm always like, because you're all over the place, you know? So every time I get a chance to talk to you, I'm always really excited. So thank you for having me.
I think there are some amazing people in this space right now that you can point to and you can say that person is working and that person is really doing something to alert people about what's going on. And so I'm always so delighted when I see you and see what you're out there doing. And so I know everybody wants to know about the Tinder Swindler, and we will talk about that. But this isn't a story to hear about what happened to you years ago. What I want to know is a little bit about how that affected you and what you did as a result of that, and how we can help protect people now from what's happening out there. So to get started on that, why don't you tell us, well, let's just start with I'm seeing you on major stages all over the world speaking about this. Tell me how it feels to have gone from a regular person to a person that now is speaking at Money 2020 and educating about the massive, devastating effects of these crimes.
Yeah, I was one of my friends today. I was talking to her about an upcoming project, and she said to me, Cecilia, who would have believed back in 2018 when this was going down that this is where you would be? I think I'm so privileged and so lucky, you know, and I think that's what I always bring with me, that not a lot of people, because we have, you know, the amount of victims that this is happening to, that are wishing that their voices will be heard. And I think that is why I'm continuing, because I think that people are still fascinated and interested. And that is why I'm like, okay, fine. Talked about it for several years, but I'm talking it not only from my perspective, but this is happening all the time. So if I can be that example to make people understand, it's worth it. But that is kind of like it. Yes, it's crazy. Like for for me, it's like, and I'm just so happy when the big players are taking part. You know, being at Google's anti-scam and fraud summit for the first time. You know, seeing. I know we have some discussions on how serious this is being taken all across the industries, but at least seeing that step being taken, having those opportunities, at least I'm not thinking, okay, we're moving one step forward. And that is what I'm thinking, like they are at least giving a victim a voice in those conversations and during that day. Because if it wasn't me, we have others as well, but I'm happy to be given that opportunity. Um,
Yeah, I think that we are in a place where we need to grab the opportunities that come to us in terms of you being the voice that is heard. You're right. There are thousands and thousands of people just like you that you are speaking for. It's an important role that you have, and I love that bigger names are listening.
yeah.
And you're right. I could definitely complain about a lot of different things, but let's recognize that this happened to you in 2018. It took us 7 years to get here. But in 2025, Google invited you to
Yeah.
tell their audience about what is happening.
Yeah. And that is what I'm always like trying to think back on. Like back then, who would have listened? And yeah, no one was listening. And I think that is kind of the main issue that we're facing, that I see a lot of like similar that have that lived experience is saying the fraud isn't what is destroying you, it's the fight afterwards. Is that because I think we all can meet dangerous and criminal people during our lifetime. That is part of life as well. You're being unlucky. But how do we meet them afterwards? And I think like being, then a victim of fraud is such a big distinction between other types of crimes. And that is where I'm trying, like, I know that we do a lot of preventative work. Of course, we don't want victims at all, but we will still have victims, and how will we meet them? So that is where I'm still like really, really highly, I like when people are asking, how did you, I was like, yeah, I'm bankrupt. That is what I will see with. And people get a bit like, okay. I was like, yeah, but that is the repercussions of this.
Yeah,
But they
that's
don't even think
one
about it.
that's one piece of the repercussions, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit because this is definitely a theme that I am seeing emerge right now in my own life is what about how are we setting victims up for success post fraud? And so
Mm.
first let's get into like how are victims of fraud different from victims of a car crash or victims of someone who breaks into their house, or how are victims of fraud different?
Well, we're being questioned immediately. If we are victims, we're not being treated as victims. We're being denied even being able to report the fraud. So I think that is where I was the most astonished, is at least I got to report, but I hear a lot of victims are even having issues that, the police aren't even interested in taking it in. So I think that is maybe the biggest hurdle. A lot of all other crime types is that even if you say, which rape, we can always say a lot about, how you're being talked about as a victim of that, like too short of a skirt and stuff. But I think if you go to police, you will be able to report it. Well, this is like you being stopped. So I think that and the burden of proof then, even in my case where I felt that I had tons of evidence, and luckily I was having more of an online relationship with my fraudster. So I had tons of, requests and pressure and everything, but nothing was good enough because they still say that these romance fraud cases are really difficult to prove. And understand as well, when it comes to fraud, to prove intent. How do you prove intent? That someone met up with you. And now I'm not even talking about only the online ones, but in my case, a lot of them are sometimes in person as well. How do you prove that? How do you prove that someone married you, got into that relationship? Because a lot of people I still have questions now like, but like Simon, doesn't he feel anything? Doesn't he have remorse? He must feel something. And I have to teach them that there are people out there in the world. No, they don't. And they can lie. Same as narcissistic domestic abuse cases. They're able to lie without caring. And I think that is maybe the biggest difference between, I think, fraud. I don't know what you feel, Erin. Maybe
Yeah,
there's
yeah, I
plenty of
feel
them.
the same. There's definitely there is a component that law enforcement, banking, all the people that are in this ecosystem are not getting, and that is there is a very specific, targeted mental warfare being played against these victims. I just got off a call with another victim who was telling me about how he was just really overwhelmed with, he can't even explain it to himself, but he feels drawn to keep into communication with this person. I think hoping to find out that maybe he's wrong and this wasn't a fraud. Um, well, let me take us off
But
that for a sec. Go ahead.
But can I just say very quickly, because I think that's the issue as well with how, the system is built up. You're supposed to go and report this to the police as quickly as possible. But a lot of victims don't understand what's happened to them then. So I bet that if I would go back, if it was a recording of me talking to the Norwegian police for the first time, I would not have been able to explain it properly what happened to me. Now I understand what it was, using the right words. But how can you expect someone who's just, yeah, you're still in the trauma to actually being able to talk about, as you said, the mental warfare or the psychological warfare they're actually been through? I think that is another thing that is like just working against you, because you will go and say, well, I gave away my money, like, yeah, did he force you? No, no, I was like, and then it becomes just, well, it's a civil matter. Because, and I think that's another thing, is that you have to do it so quickly. Um,
I agree with that. I think the expectations on victims to come to terms with what happened to them, be able to identify it and explain it, and ideally be met with someone in law enforcement that already understands, gets it, and is empathetic. I think that that's an unrealistic uh, idea of what's happening today.
yeah.
Let me ask you this. So before we go further, just to, so maybe there are people who have not watched the Tinder Swindler, and if you haven't, I would suggest that you pause this right now and go watch it, because it's super compelling, and and it's oh, it's just, it's a story that you can't understand until you watch it happen. And when you watch it happen, you're like, oh, I understand why she did that. Oh, it makes sense that she thought she was getting an apartment with him. Oh, okay, now I understand why that happened. And then at the end of the Tinder Swindler, and we'll talk about this, you become enraged when you find out what little was actually done about this. And so we will get to that. But if, in case someone who hasn't seen it, give me the abbreviated version of who Simon is, how you came to meet him, and what happened to you.
Yeah. It's in the title, The Tinder Swindler. So it started as an online, dating, as a lot of them are, but compared to a lot of others, like I met him in person. So kind of this, I call it like immersive theater, or this persona that he personified was being a CEO of this diamond company. So he pretended to be from the Levi family, which is a very rich billionaire family from Israel. And if you go then online, you see this family, and it plays the part. And I think that is like what's so compelling, is that I've never heard back in 2018 about people being able to falsify their entire life, and they're living it. So he was on private jets, he was on yachts, he was on five-star hotels, eating dinners. So it wasn't that he just said it and just sent maybe some fake pictures. He was living it. So I started dating him, and the first date we went to Bulgaria on a private jet, which is kind of, a lot of people are saying, how could you do that? And I think that is kind of where it started, where people got like, okay, what is this story? Became boyfriend and girlfriend, and we started dating, and just fell in love. Like, I was 29, started to become 30. I felt like, my God, this is perfect. Living in London, and then unfortunately, because of his high position, after a while, he had a bodyguard. It was the reason why he had this bodyguard. There were some enemies and competitors who was doing well. And I gave him a very nice Valentine present. And I think that's when his team, as I said, he's not alone when they're doing this, realized we have her. And that's when he asked for a favor, if he could travel safely under my name, because his competitors had seen that by the spend on his card all over the world, as some Levive, they could see where he was, and he was in danger. So his security team had barred him from using his credit card. And I hate that I'm laughing about it now, because I know better now. But I fully trusted him at this point, that that was the reality. And I think the request as well was so small compared to what he had done for me. So I said yes. So I took out an Amex Platinum card, got that in 2 days, and he started using and traveling then under my name as Cecilie Fjellhøy, like business tickets, like five-star hotels, dinners, wining and dining clients. So it was very different than most fraud cases I've heard of, because I always heard these 419 Nigerian scams where they just go to, MoneyGram and just send 100K or 10K. And I was like, well, I was just like so far away from scam in my head, because I was like, well, I can see he's using the money that he said he was going to use it for. But after a while, things were not getting better. He started creating kind of immersive theaters that I was in danger when I was visiting him. So I was really feeling it on my body. Things were not getting better. And of course, but that's the thing. When you give them a pinky, this is sunk cost fallacy that we hear. The more you put into a relationship, the harder it is to get out. And that's how it was for me. So I was like, well, I'm already in it. And, more serious stuff was happening. So I was like, well, they're really after him. And then after a while, I've been taking up loans for him and lost £200,000 in 54 days. Like I knew him longer, but from kind of the handing over of the platinum Amex, that was 54 days. And that's when I realized I'd been defrauded, when nothing was working out, and he turned on me and was screaming. So if you've seen the Tinder Swindler and hear some of these voice notes, that's what I had on phone calls with him, where he called me an imbecile, because I was started questioning. So that is always my advice to people. I wish I had questioned more. Not out of that you're thinking that he's a fraudster, but it's normal to question if someone is asking something of you of value, that you have the proper information before you do it. And I kick myself to this day that I didn't ask some of the more tougher questions earlier on. But you didn't know at the time. But that is the
Well,
it.
and I think there's a piece of it too. I was talking to a mentor earlier this week, and she was like, "You just need to trust your gut in life." And so many times we don't trust our gut because we want that. Because if you believe that this is real, what a wonderful experience you were in. You were with a very attentive man who
Like,
by all appearances loved you very much and would lead you to a very nice lifestyle.
yeah, and I think, like, I don't want to sugarcoat it, and I think that was very important for me. It was like it was the entire package of him, Of course, it was that he had the position, he was ambitious, but it was fun, attentive, loving. He remembered everything, and it was funny, and that is why I think it's so difficult for me to see a lot of the films that's been putting out of him partying up, because I never received those. Because while everything was going on, he was supposed to be sad. He was supposed to be very, and he was playing that part and so when the Tinder Swindler aired, and you see all of this partying up, like they're sitting there partying with all these girls, I never got that. If I would have gotten that, I would have questioned stuff. Why are you in this club with these girls? So it's for me, it's just so, like, the lengths that people will go to take your money. That is what I'm left with. And that is one way of doing it. And he did it, unfortunately. So Simon, or Shimon Hayut, he changed his name legally back in 2017. So that is what he's rolling with. But his real name is Shimon Hayut, and he hates that name. So that's why I'm trying to use it. Because that is his real name. He could try to pretend. But unfortunately, he was only in prison for a year in total, and never for anything has done as Simon Levi. We're still kind of fighting. And I still have to say, I think it's difficult for a victim to just give up on that. I was at Interpol a couple of weeks ago and spoke there, and someone said to me that you might have to give up. And I just took it so personally, because I think it's difficult as a victim, because sometimes you have to come to that realization, it's a lot of crimes that you never get justice. That is part of it, and you still have to be able to go to bed and sleep. But I'm wondering when I'll get to that point where I'll feel, okay, I will let this go. But I feel like I'm not done with it yet.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. Give us the end of the Tinder Swindler video. Tell us where Simon was left.
Simon was left, and that is the main thing I've gotten from so many people writing to me, and I'm so happy about it, is that
Mhm.
the anger, the
Yes,
frustration people were
we're
having.
angry.
Yeah. And I love it because anger is productive in a sense that it drives you and fuels you. So I love when people are angry rather than sad. Don't be sad for me. Be angry on my behalf. That is, then we can do something about it. But yeah, he was out there. He had gotten a new girlfriend and was living it up and of course posting a lot on social media. And after that, he's always gone a bit into hiding, but he came out in this year in November with a new scam. Now it's crypto and a meme coin called Tind, where he's actively going out there saying that he's the Tinder swindler and that we did him a favor, that he's happy that we did it.
You have
So,
got to be kidding me. So tell me more about this. Tell me how he's emerging in 2025 with a crypto scam.
so he's in Dubai, gotten new criminals. We not like that. We know it's the capital of fraud, Dubai now. So he just have new people around him that knows how to use him. So he got a website up where he stole the entire like Tinder swindler marketing trope, everything, and just leans into it and did a lot of radio shows that we got taken down, but a lot of podcasts where he's then defaming us. And I think it comes to a point where I have so many people, and he's using the lack of police effort to show that we're lying. And I think that is what makes me so angry. That he's saying, well, I agree. If he was guilty, why am I still out there? Why isn't the police saying that we want Simon Levine? Why isn't he on a list of fugitives? Why isn't anyone screaming out from police that we want this guy? Because no one is saying anything. It's been silence. So of course, when he's out, I would have done the same thing. Of course, you would have used that. So he's still out there. He's a bit in hiding again now, but I bet that he will pop up. But I got contacted by a recent victim of him, a man in Abu Dhabi, and it's just terrible. I don't know what to do, and I really, yeah, I don't know. It's a really difficult thing because everyone wants you to move on, but I'm not the type of person when people reach out to me. And my froster is still out there destroying more people, so I have to just turn my back and not respond and not care. That is not the individual I am. So I have to say, like, if you would just stop being a criminal and stop defrauding people, I will let him be too, because he's really angry with us. The women who took him down are very angry with us, talking about us as actresses, of course, liars, that we just used him, implying that we're gold diggers and whores, and kind of going into that trope of incel that is really, those are the ones who are, saluting what he did. And these are the ones who are fanboys of him. But that is like the kind of position that I'm at now, where I'm like, what do you do? What more can you do? And I have connections. That's the worst part, Erin. I have connections in police and Interpol. If I can't get him down, I
I
will.
know. I know. I know. So walk me through that. So
No.
when you first reported generally,
Yeah.
and I got to identify with what you're saying about having all the evidence and wanting to give it to the police, we were working with a victim who literally brought all that evidence into the police and was really treated super poorly. And so there's always a we can do better, we've got to do better, we've got to do better. But tell me what your experience was with law enforcement, and tell me why no one is arresting this guy. Why didn't he have to pay for this?
I like with me, I reported in Norway first, where I think I just met, a police officer that knew nothing about romance fraud. So I was treated very poorly. I had my mom with me, and like the report was 1.5 pages long, and then you can imagine how little in detail it went to. So that got dropped after 3 weeks. And then when I got a death threat from Simon, that's when I was like, went to the UK police as well and reported it. And they took it really seriously. I cannot commend the woman who took my report better. At the start, she was a bit like,
Hmm.
but after a while, I could see she got more and more serious. And I was like, oh. So my case was put into the domestic abuse kind of section. So I got better care. So I'm really lucky. But the issue is that they're using us as tools and pawns in their little game. So unfortunately, because I had been his hands, I had sent in fake documents
Uh,
to Amex that I didn't know was fake at the time. Or I knew that if they would call LD Diamonds, they would be told that Cecilie is employed here because he employed me at the company. And of course, we know it's a fraudster, so those papers were fake. to get a high credit. So when the police got these documents, of course, as police, they have to check, is Cecilia part of this? I could, this is what I mean. We could have gotten together as a conspiracy together. I just have several questions. Why would I have gone to the police and report him then? Nothing would have happened if I didn't go to the police. So that is another thing. So I became a suspect where they then turned on me and focused their efforts on me. So they came into my flat with body cameras and wanted with a warrant for my phone to see my communication with Simon Levive. But that was almost after a year after I reported. And I had said several times to come into an interview or send in my doc, but they didn't want it. And that is my main gripe with them. I was like, why did you do that? And kind of now I'm at Interpol talking about it. And there was this guy from the UK and he said, like, it's embarrassing for them now. It's very embarrassing for them that the UK police treated a fraud victim in a very high profile case like this, because I won't shut up about it. Never, don't do this to someone. So after then they got that evidence, they looked through it, and then over a year again, then they called me and said that they dropped the case against me, then they dropped my case against Simon as well. And there were several reasons. One was that he had done a company fraud in the UK as well. So when they looked at company fraud versus romance fraud, easier to prove and more money lost. So they were like, if we're going to, as an easy way to get him convicted as possible, let's go all in on the company fraud. Like romance fraud is not as easy. And then the second is that I went public with the story. So they said it will be very, very difficult to get kind of a judgment, and that he won't be able to say, well, the jury has this opinions, or there's a lot of evidence out there already. So kind of by me going public and helping others took away my own possibility of justice. They After the Tinder Swindler on Netflix came out, they looked at my case again and they decided not to so kind of it is dropped. It is not anything I can get justice for. So that has been my journey, but he's still wanted in the UK for the company fraud. So that is what I'm leaning and hoping, that we will get some justice and get him in jail for that. Why? I got this question today actually from someone who reached out to me, another victim. From a lot of people are reaching out to me wanting help, or I talked to a victim and she would just ask me, but why isn't he out there? Like, why isn't anyone doing? And this is what I mean. Why, police, are you doing this to me, that I have to be the one who's answering all these people about your lack of work, that I have to stand here and have to explain? What I've heard is that he's very good at hiding. He's very good at jumping from country to country and is not prioritized at all. I think this has only to do with prioritization. They
I agree.
have cases, they
Hmm.
have it. I think this is all that we just need someone higher up in the system, that because I've asked to get him extradited. I've tried my best. Because he was in Dubai, where there's an extradition order to the UK, and the moment I saw that, I went straight back to 2018. You should have seen me. I was shaking here, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna cry." But can I finally get justice? And can I finally catch him? And then I just get from the police that since I'm more of a nuance, like that, they're annoyed with me for still being around, because I don't have an active case. That's how I feel. Like they would be more happy if I just let this go. But I'm not doing this for myself. I'm already a victim. I'm healing. I'm fine. I'm not scared of Simon Levive. I want to protect him from others. And we can see that he's never
Yeah.
going to stop. So that is like where we're at, where it's just really, really, I don't want to put this out almost, because I know that he's checking my socials. He's checking everything I do. But don't want him to know what I'm doing. But of course, I'm working to still get justice here, because it's just unfair. I'm very justice driven, and this is not justice at all. So
You and me both. That I cannot abide things that are not fair. And there are plenty of pieces of things that are happening all over the world that just are not fair right now and are not right. And that we need to prioritize what is happening, because they are ruining lives. And what I love about you is that, okay, horrible things happen to you. You're still fired up, but you have turned that into something really impressive and something that I got to have a small part in as well. So tell me about your efforts to help people navigate the criminal justice system and the project that you've been working on.
Yeah, I'm like, it's been a long time coming. It's been since the Tinder Swindler. This new series is based on me, and that after the Tinder Swindler, the influx of people contacting me or all around the world having the same difficulties. What can I do? Like, how can I, that's, it's not even about justice from the legal standpoint, but how can I do what you did? I want to get my fraudster's face out there. It's justice in that as well. Like, the police might not do anything, but at least I protected others. You know, they have their name, they have their face. Oh, beautiful. So this new series is we're telling, I've partnered up with a private investigator over in the US called Brianne Joseph, and because you need help, I don't know how to do background checks and doing undercover work, not undercover, but like trying to find the fraudsters. So it's just telling 5 stories of people who's been defrauded by people, romance fraudsters in person. So these are not the online ones. But as I said, a lot of them are very similar. It's the same playbook as when they are in person. So I was over in the US for almost half a year. And yes, Erin, you are part of one of the stories, which I'm really, really excited because you had to help us,
Yeah,
or
I
a little bit.
I
Yeah.
was delighted to it was a crazy fortuitous situation. You asked for my help and we both happened to be in San Diego on the same day and we got to
Mm,
meet in person and
for the first time.
it was amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was amazing. That so
So
I'm
that, yeah.
go
So
ahead.
this show, just like I just want to like this show was always because I went public myself. I know the guts it takes, the heart it takes that you want to protect others. You put your good name and reputation on the line because you know you'll be getting a lot of, shitty comments. And I wanted to give something back. So this for me was that being able to meet someone on a peer of them that understand what they've been through, being able to explain to them, the tactics, why kind of this happened and why it's happening to so many people. And of course, trying to give them some sense of justice when it comes to either helping them, with the police, maybe meeting you with a more empathetic angle to it, where they can see that there are people who still care, that is not that, or that is what I mean. Like, but of course, in a lot of these cases, we'll just have to see what happens. But that is like, we have different ways of getting justice. And I know at least we'll be able to give them that now they've told their stories, and hopefully that will stop them in their tracks doing what they're doing. And it's incredible stories. Like for me, what people are doing to other people, what they can lie about, I'm floored. So that is like one thing that I'm really proud of. And every time I watched a couple of episodes, and every time I start to cry is when I see the victims and seeing how either happy they are or, emotional, or like that I'm able to do this to 5 stories, like 5 people, or like, there's many victims that we've been speaking to, but being able to do that for others when I know how important it was for me, I just feel so, so, so blessed. So I'm so excited for people to see it. And yeah.
What an amazing piece of healing for you to be on the other side of helping someone walk through it. And what an amazing piece for these victims to see here's what it looks like on the other side and here's how strong you can be and here's how you can emerge from this. I think it's just a win-win for everyone and quite frankly, it's a win-win for all of us to have a series like that we can look at. We can see and understand these victims because I think so many times people just do not understand what a romance fraud victim is. And there's not a ton of empathy. And because people just don't understand how it could happen. To me, I wonder if you see this as well. As a sexual assault prosecutor, I saw the change from when we used to overlook victims of sexual assault and we would say, well, you asked for it, you shouldn't have been there. And we would make all kinds of judgments. I think there's been a societal change in that way. We're still fighting it, but there's been a societal change. Could we see the same thing for victims of financial fraud, of romance fraud? Can you imagine a time years from now where we start to understand that mental manipulation and we give these victims more grace than they're getting right now?
Yeah. I first of all, I have to believe it. I think it's gonna be like futile to go in front of spearhead something. It's like it's never gonna work. I think it works because I think like on an individual level, seeing just people like I did a podcast in Norway in Norwegian, which is like so weird for me to speak in Norwegian sometimes, you know. And it was this
How is your
individual.
Norwegian?
No, it
Because you
is good. It's
okay.
it's so good, but from like a professional angle, I speak much more English than I speak. Even my mom told me because sometimes she was a bit bored and she said, "I've watched a lot of your podcasts and you're better in English, I say, than you're in
Uh,
Norwegian." And I was like, "Oh
oh,
my
that's
God."
so funny.
Yeah. But like even in Norway, where the notions are a bit more similar to the US, I would say, compared to the UK. And just from him, just one individual saying, I watched that. And I said to him, I was kind of tired when I did that podcast. I was very fired up and very, tired of everything. And but he said, well, it made me look at it differently, and that is like and more the human side to it. I was like, oh, it's worth it. Every single time I get those small nuggets of people coming to me, then I know they'll go back to their job and think of everything differently. Maybe they will, talk to a different team. Maybe they will drag in this. I just like, I know we're heading there. But stories matter, and the more stories we have, that is why it's nice in this series. Like I'm doing a master into where I talk about the playbook. We go into kind of the more of I won't say the mindset because for me these are not clever. And that is what I want to really evaporate this notion that fosters are so manipulative and they're so charismatic. And it's like we need to stop how we talk about this individual too, because it's just hurting us.
So
These are
tell
not
us. Yeah, tell us. Tell us what we should be saying.
I'm just like, I just don't understand why we're so fascinated. Why it's so important to understand the mindset. Would you put a domestic abuser on stage? Would you put a murderer on stage to understand and to pay them
No.
money to talk about why they were murdering so we can just learn from you? Like, it's almost like that is just mine. I know it's like we have some, but good people now, but for me, I just don't understand from a victim's perspective, highly traumatizing and not something that you would do in any other type of crime, that you would pay for them to talk about their crimes and kind of lean into it, how charismatic I was, how good I was at getting people to fall for my fraud. Why are we so, they're just so charismatic and so great. That's how I feel it. No, they're not.
Right.
Horrible human beings, terrible, horrible, god awful human beings, evil, evil human beings they are. Should never, ever. They should do it for free. If they start a nonprofit the same way as I am, then I'll believe you. Sorry. Maybe we need to cut that out. But I'm just like, for
I'm
me,
not sure we do.
I'm,
I think that's the passion that is needed
yeah,
about
but
this
it's
subject.
it's just for me, it's nothing about individuals at all. I have to say everyone needs to earn their buck, and I totally get it. But we need to stop at looking up at them like, oh my God, how can we understand you? This is not about individuals. It's just easy, not easy, but it's just tactics that works on humans. I know that you spoke to Martina, Dr. Martina, and it's
Yes.
like, this is what I mean. It's just how we work.
Right?
It's not
Is
like,
let's understand the process. We don't need to be enamored by the person who made it happen, but let's figure
yeah,
out what
I
the
think
process is.
Yeah, I think that why they're good, why some of these fraudsters that are on stage, it's good because they've done the proper work. It's not because we want to learn about their mastermind, masterminds and stuff. And I was like, oh, And I think if anyone would put Simon, can you imagine how god awful that would be if you put
Oh my
Simon on
God.
stage? No, it's just,
You put a sociopath and a liar on stage and then pay him to do it? Wow.
yeah.
No. How
Because
awful
I,
is
I think
that?
But I think, like, if you know what I mean, like, he loved, Catch Me If You Can and stuff, like, these individuals do have these fraudsters that made it, that got successful for being fraudsters. They look up to them. Jordan
Yeah.
Belfort. These are the individuals that they are like, yay, and we need to stop it. But yeah.
Well, I'm so glad you bring up Jordan Belfort because
Yeah.
he was In a different type of crime I prosecuted SIM
Yeah.
swappers who also are sociopathic people who have no regard for the damage they're doing, but he too idolized Jordan Belfort.
That's what I mean. Because it
Yeah.
like, come on, yeah, because he is traveling around the world, doing talks, talking about it. And I understand you can be reformed. I totally get that. But it's about how we're speaking. I think it's not them individual that I have an issue with, but I think it's just how we speak on them and, learning about their minds and masterminds and putting them up on a pedestal that they're so smart and how they could get people to do what they want. And I just need to be, careful with our language when we speak about
Yeah.
this. I think that's one
Uh,
of the main things to change this narrative.
well, and I'm glad you pointed that out because I think there's a lot of stuff that people need to hear about victims that they really are not always hearing. And so
Mhm.
I think you do a service by saying, "Hey, that's offensive when you do that." When we stuff that seems obvious perhaps needs to be said clearly sometimes.
Yeah, I know. There was someone that said to me, like, I was a little clip from that Norwegian podcast, like, my God, you're so to the point. You're very, where I feel when I look at myself, my God, I might be too emotional. I might be too, and then I'm like, no, come on. We need more emotions in this sometimes. We can be a bit too, you know,
I think that's exactly it. I think there's a lot of like clinical analysis of this about let's look at how much fraud is costing us or let's look at this and that. And what's really happening here is we are wrecking people. We are wrecking thousands and thousands of people whose lives will forever be changed and so will their families and so will it's just it's a people issue. And so
yeah,
it needs a little passion to it.
yeah.
You mentioned that you have a nonprofit. I too have a nonprofit. We are exactly. We are Operation Share Market is now officially a nonprofit, and so we believe in the concept of building an organization for the greater good. And sometimes I find sometimes that can be a lonely place to be. But
Mhm.
I want to hear about the nonprofit that you have built and what made you decide to start it and how it's going?
It started back in, like, my wanting to create a nonprofit started back in 2019, actually, when I first went public. And I was like, but I was back home in Norway where I was like so fed up with the system. And I felt like if I scream at the top of my lungs, who will listen to me? But if I'm an organization, and can help people, then it will be a lot better. So I talked to a lot of consumer organizations in Norway, and we have some legal clinics that are helping for free. So there are people who are studying to become lawyers in Norway that do it on their free time. That's all the legal help that people in Norway are getting. So I had some meetings with them, and they had the exact same opinion as me. You know, like what fraud victims are going through. The challenge that they had, that they were very sad they couldn't do more. And I was like, okay, so it isn't only me. So it really helped me like realize, okay, so this is not something they do because it's Cecilie Fjellhøy. This is not personal for these financial institutions or police. Sometimes you can feel that, there's something wrong with me that is making you act like this. So it really helped me to understand, okay, this is on a systemic level. So we need to work on the system. And then I realized no banks and financial institutions in Norway wanted to speak to me. So how can you create a nonprofit that is working on these issues if you have people in that doesn't want to speak to you? Because you're a nuance to everyone and you're just speaking, we just think. So that's when I met the amazing Anna Rowe, who runs Catch the Catfish. And it's just she's a force to be reckoned with. When I
Tell us
met her,
about Anna. Yeah, tell us about
Anna,
Anna.
oh my God, I would be nowhere without Anna. Like, she has taught me so much. Can you imagine? Part-time teacher, part-time this. She's the drive and passion she has for this. Like, she's a victim of romance fraud, but she's very clear that it's like a non-financial one. But the drive that she has for these financial crimes as well, like on top of it, her perspective is so important. Because imagine, like, what she ended up in her situation, you're being taken advantage of with a fake persona, a fake personality. Everything was fake. It Her story is so important for me that we take seriously what they do to us as humans. You know, What did he do to me as a person? The intimate abuse, the emotional abuse that is not being accounted for at all. She is that voice. You know, when she went forward with her story, I was like, yeah, she didn't get justice in her case. Not me, not financial. No one is getting justice, no matter what happened to you. So she started Catch the Catfish, where it's a resource bank, and she's helping people then on the ground every single day, responding to victims, talking to them on the phone at 10 a.m. on a Saturday, no matter, and they just want to walk into the ocean and escape. So I see kind of, I see some of those, sometimes we get donations, and a couple of them have been specifically for the work that Anna did, and the heartfelt thanks that people are writing to her. Like, I wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for you. Like, I'm like, so I have to say, like, when it comes to this running of our operations, what is this, like, that she's on the ground, you know, while I'm more of the person that kind of, sometimes she opens doors too, of course, but sometimes when people hear the Tinder Swindler, it's like, "Ugh," you know. So that is where we work really, really great. So we've been able to, you know, to create Love Said, which is like a fusion where kind of she has, you know, still Catch the Catfish, but it's more of a think tank. So we've been in front of politicians in the UK, you know, speaking on behalf of lived experience, but experts in our own rights. And that is what I really want to highlight. Sometimes people don't understand the expertise that we have. They look at us only with this story that is kind of boohoo for you, so you can have some empathy for us, and then you just go on with your day. And I really have to say that we come with so much more than just our singular stories because of the amount of people that we've been helping. So it's both a support center. It hasn't been that easy getting funding, I have to say.
Oh, I
It's
know.
been very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
It's like starting a nonprofit, and you're like, come on, we need help. But it's been so we have a couple, we still have, we really want to create a peer support community. I think that is on the top of our, we have the software, because I really want to connect fraud victims from across the globe in different, you know, stages in the life cycle. Can you imagine pulling together like a little group of people that can really be helpful for each other with a moderator, you know, with someone that is there to make sure that everything runs smoothly. But peer support for me has been everything. You can talk to someone that might have empathy. And I really, you know, talk to my mom all the time still, you know, so she has empathy. She can, but talking to someone like Pernilla, you know, from the Tinder Swindler, we just understand it. When I said to her, sometimes I just missed my old life, that I didn't go public, that I did, this didn't happen. And she's the only one who understands that.
Yeah.
So, so Love Said is, you know, based on that, we have had that experience. We know how it is. You can come to us without judgment. There's nothing, because we've been there. So that is so it is an organization for romance fraud victims in the UK based, but we help people globally, no matter where you are. So it's like a, both like a step-by-step help based on where you know, what you need help with. Do you need to go to the police and report? We can help you with, kind of prepare you a bit for how that might be and what you should say. When it comes to financial institutions here in the UK, for example, you know, how to write that letter to get reimbursed, how to, and if you get like a decline on it, we can then help you, okay, what you should say and what you should do. Is that lending hand? And of course, mental health as well. So we have a lot of, um, but like, yeah, when I met Anna, and she told me what she was doing, I was like, this woman, you know, I need to, I need to
She's a
work
fo
with her.
she is
Yeah,
a force, and you
she
are
is.
a force, and, I love what you're doing about creating a community. That is something that always resonates with me and a lot of the people I talk to on the podcast. I think that creating communities of like-minded people who are interested in the greater good is what propels us forward. And so I I love that you are creating that for victims of a really distinct crime that
Yeah.
really experience something very different than victims of any other crime. And so building a community for those people is such a gift to the world.
So it will take a bit time, but I'm like, it's almost like I think when you start this journey, I bet that you felt that too. It's like it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. That's how I always come back to it. It didn't go exactly how I planned when we started it, but I'm really hoping that, you know, it will become something. If not, we will just have a very, like, what I feel as well, like we have different sizes of nonprofits too, you know. we can be.
I totally get it. I totally get it. So
Yeah.
when you speak these days and when you're out in the community, when you're home at night thinking about this, the what is it you want? What could the world be doing better right now?
It's be more I think we talk a lot about prevention, but I wish we could focus a lot more about, the journey after as well. I understand that that's how we want to look at it, but I think a lot of the times I'm screaming out like that we need more people aware of the crime. We need more training of police officers, of banking employees. They need more help. The people on the ground is not the issue here. And that is why I always trying to say when I'm being critical of how the police worked and how the banks worked and everything, it's not on them. They just haven't gotten the priorities, because there's a lot of other things that I understand is higher up on their list. So when I'm on stage, I always trying to take a bit of a step back. And, because I feel like there is a lot of talk on social engineering. We are more mindful of it. But what I like to kind of say is that I was showing you on my when I did a new talk on trust, digital trust, because that's what I'm really passionate about, and how we're looking into digital identity now. And everyone in other countries are thinking, except I'm from Scandinavia, where we already have a digital identity. And the reason why I ended up in this is the abuse of digital identity. So I'm here, just like, please don't let us make the same mistake again of jumping over human behavior and just creating softwares, putting that in the hand of people who can be manipulated and coerced, and we don't have any processes to actually handle that or anything. We don't care about human behavior anymore. We've created this software, and however people will use it, we don't care. It's going to be their fault because this is 100% safe. People are not safe. You're the weak link. Boo you. That is how I feel they're looking at it. So I'm always bringing in, the cost of Operation Shamrock, though. Like, I always like to take a bit, even if you're working then and you're saying, okay, but I have these metrics that I need, and I have these KPIs, and I need this, and I can't. I always then like to bring in Operation Shamrock in your guys' work, where I was like, stop it, take a step back and look at what is going on in the world as a whole then. So even though if your company, you're feeling that this is not something that you should care about, and I just self-interest, you need to act in national interest. This is a national security issue, not a consumer affairs issue anymore. You need to act in national interest and not in self-interest. And then I tend to bring in kind of more of the scam compounds. And then
Yeah.
I played a video of you when you were in the Philippines, because that was like eerily to me, because I like visuals. People, react if you see people in the places where, for example, criminal activity was going on. People
Yeah.
had their lives destroyed here. So that is like what I'm trying, sc- screaming out of the rooftops.
I love it. I think you can
Yeah.
provide some excellent cautionary information about digital identity and how that's working. But more importantly, I love that we had this conversation because it really reminds me of the very human piece of this that is so frequently overlooked when we're just trying to solve a problem is that part of the problem solving has to be how we can help people navigate the time after and
Mm.
how we can make them feel heard, understood, how we can provide better resources for them and opportunities for them to meet each other through organizations like Love Said. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the work you're doing.
Oh, same, Erin. I just love all the amazing people in the industry that I've gotten to know. I just feel that there is and I love the positivity. I want us to be positive. Like, we can't continue this if we're just, has AI, like, I just, when you go to conferences, and it's just like,
Yes. Oh, I'm
can,
so over. Yes.
I know, can we win the fight against deepfakes? And I'm like, oh, I'm just like, have they won? Have we lost the fight? And I was like, can you stop it? What are you telling the criminals? That is what I'm feeling too. Like, we have a very negative, I understand it's a challenge, but come on.
Right.
Like, we have
Right.
to be
Here's the
positive.
challenge, and here's a little bit of hope. Here's things that we can do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Okay, so for somebody listening today, what's something they can do? What's something they can do to help?
I think that to help, I feel like read up on kind of, if you're not really sure, read up on kind of social engineering, like read up on cyber psychology. I know there are plenty of books out there or podcasts that is handling it. I think people just need more. I say knowledge is power. So the more you know about it, if you work in a bank, please go to your supervisor and ask if you can get some training. If you work for the police, and I have to say, very like for myself, if you work in the police, let me know if I should contact you regarding Simon Levi. No, I'm kidding. No, like, how can they help? Like, in many ways. But I think I always say in my own case, knowledge was power to understand why it happened. And I think more people should just be educated on the matter. And I think they will act based on that. And I think that is what we need to do. So,
I love it.
yeah.
Awareness, education. Keep
Yes.
talking. Keep
Yeah.
getting on big stages, Cecilia. Keep doing your important work.
Oh,
And I'm grateful for the time you set aside today.
oh,
And so let's end it on a positive note. Tell us more about when we can hope to see your new series.
the series is launching on the 5th of September on Netflix globally. So it's called LoveCon Revenge. I know, a very entertaining title, same
Mm-hmm,
as a Tinder Swindler. So we go into
mm-hmm,
the same kind of trope, but
mm-hmm.
revenge, I would say, is in a positive manner. It's more justice, but that
I
is what
love
we're
it.
getting. Yeah.
Well, I will be talking about it. I will be posting about it, and I will be tuning in for sure. So, thank you for fighting the fight with me, and thank you for coming on the podcast.
You've just heard the truth. Now, what will you do with it? Subscribe to Stolen and share it with someone you care about. Because anyone can be a target. Visit OperationShamrock.org to learn more, get resources, and join the fight. And follow Erin West on LinkedIn. Stolen is real stories, real people, and a crisis we can't afford to ignore.